A very good morning to you. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this Monday morning. We have a full house. Kevin Kilbane is here. How are you?
All good?
Yeah, all good. Owen is here.
How are you?
You've only got one scar. You didn't get a new one in Tralee on Saturday night. What happened?
Everybody was just too happy to go dishing out physical punishments.
Being a bit cocky. You know, they're causing a bit of trouble.
That's it. I'm just very, very happy that my fellow county people were also very, very happy. So no violence dished out this time.
Yeah. So we've basically between us seen everything that happened in the world, and Alan Quinlan's going to join us a little bit later on because he was at the Ireland game. What games were you at the weekend?
I was at Brighton and Burnley. Actually, it was actually a really good game. I went to the game expecting nothing, 0-0, 1-0 either way, but it's a good game. Burnley were very impressive. Really impressed with Burnley. Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
Jeff Hendrick played really well. Ashley Barnes up front was really impressive for Burnley. He caused Shane Duffy a lot of problems at the weekend, which was a slight worry if you're looking at it from the Irish perspective there. But Burnley just went back to whenever you've seen Burnley being good over the last few years, being a solid 4-4-2. They played Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes up front in the two tall target men essentially, but worked really hard, and they were a real threat at counter-attacking midfield. I thought they held the ball really well, and overall, maybe second half, last 20 minutes, Brighton pushed on a little bit, and Jeff Hendrick, I don't know if you saw the penalty incident, Jeff Hendrick was a clear handball, should have been a penalty to Brighton at 2-0, and 1-0 it was, and 30 seconds later, they got the other end, Burnley themselves, and win a penalty. So, yeah, it was a good performance from Burnley. I thought they were the more impressive, yeah. Yeah,
you were at the Dublin Kerry game, obviously. Scenes, I think is the word. Scenes.
It was class. It was absolutely class. There's no getting away from it. I was trying to think when was the last time there was a league game that had that atmosphere. And to be honest with you don't actually have to go back that far. You just have to go back 2 years previous to the exact same fixture in the exact same venue. And to be fair, that very same year, when Mayo came down and brought all their fans, it was brilliant as well. Small ground, 12,000 capacity, with two big teams is what makes the league so great. And we'll get into a conversation later on, I'm sure, about putting teams of similar standing up against one another and how that naturally produces better games. The plus side for that was what they showed on Saturday night. The negative side to that is that there was plenty of teams of a similar stature going toe-to-toe as well yesterday, and we got served up with some terrible football.
Was it bubbling before the game?
Unbelievable. Before the game was absolutely outrageous. There was
a concert. What was the story?
Basically a trad band playing. And
for like 90 minutes or something?
Yeah, because people were in their seats from 5:30.
Right.
Because the stand is so small.
Oh yeah, okay, so it's not assigned seating, you don't have a ticket for a seat, you've got to get in early.
You got to get in early. Like, to be fair, I was in the media section of the stand, so I just waltzed in at quarter to 7, and I was like, I wish I got here an hour and 15 minutes ago, because the place was hopping. Like, I've never seen anything like it in Kerry before a game. So yeah, great shout out to everybody there who put that on beforehand, because it was a brilliant night all round. Just like one quick touching point on an overall sense was that I think the biggest cheer of the entire night came after the match when Peter Keane was walking off the pitch. So all the players had got in, or else the players were out doing a warm down, and Keane was kind of on his own walking back into the tunnel, and the stand erupted. Kerry fans love this guy. Instantly, they've warmed to him. I don't know, is it because he's completely hyped up the whole idea of being a proper Kerry man in terms of his dealings, and like he seems to just have a great relationship with the fans immediately, and beating Dublin, I guess you're going to have a decent enough relationship with any fans. But the thing is, Dublin, I would say, 60% of where they're going to be at in the summer, Kerry probably 80-85%.
He recognised you somehow after the post-match interview?
Well, yeah, he did. When Peter Keane was appointed as Kerry manager, I gave the most important analysis of him as a human being.
Who is this man? What do we know about this guy? What will his footballing philosophy be? Owen had all the details.
Yeah, so basically, whenever I was growing up and we were on the way back down to my grandmother's house, which is down in South Kerry, Clorglen is like the midway spot, and Peter Keane's shop, the Super Value there, has one of the best delis in the entire of County Kerry. So he said to me, thank you very much for the plug on the sausage rolls there. I will say the sausage rolls are outstanding. I just haven't tested them since he's become Kerry manager, so I hope the standards haven't slipped. I'm sure they haven't.
Yeah, no, he's not coasting them.
You're at Anfield?
Yes, Anfield. My first time at Anfield in like nearly 2 decades.
Yeah.
Obviously a much slicker corporate. The new stand had been built since the last time I was there, and
you're in the new stand as well?
Yeah.
What did you think?
We're up really high, and like it doesn't matter that you're up really high. The view is perfect. And the atmosphere kind of bubbles nicely. They were very nervous, I thought. There was definitely like the Liverpool fans are not quite happy with the fact that, this might go their way. It's like, it's right there for them. It certainly was on Saturday, until obviously Man City put in the performance that they put in yesterday. Bournemouth nearly scored almost straight from the kickoff, had a great opportunity, and Alisson makes a save, and everybody's like, "Oh shit, this is going to be exactly the same as it has been for the last few weeks." And then they score relatively early, and they're playing quite well, and then everybody gets nervous again that we scored early just recently. That's no big deal. And then they score a second one, they're like, well, 2-0 is the worst lead in football. And then the third goal goes in, they all start to relax a little bit, and they enjoy that. And then they're like, oh, but this means that we have the burden of expectation. How do we carry this expectation? It's the hope that kills you. So, and like, I don't know, Anfield definitely has a history to it that, I don't know if you can appreciate this, having, been so embedded with Everton, but like, it's an amazing place.
Yeah, it is. The atmosphere is fabulous, isn't it, when it goes there? I just think what it would be like to be in that Liverpool dressing room, that the anticipation leading up to every game, it's like a derby game or a Liverpool Man United game, whichever one you want to say, going into every single game now at Anfield. The pressure that the players are under, I don't know if it might become a little bit overwhelming for them. I don't know. I hope that they can actually maintain a great challenge and we get a brilliant run-in with them and City and Tottenham as well, don't forget. So I hope that'll be the case. But I just think the pressure that's on those players and the expectation that's there. And
I'd been at Ireland, England the week before in the Aviva, and it was interesting just to compare and contrast how early everybody gets to their seats. It was 10 minutes before kick-off in the Ireland-England game, and the crowd was like a quarter full. Everybody was in the stadium probably, but they were out having pints. At Anfield, everybody was in their seats and they were singing and they were getting into it. And that pre-match ritual is clearly perfectly orchestrated to the bit where they just get to, at the right time, the song, and then the song happens and then kick-off happens, and it's like so choreographed that it feels like Adrian Barry was there as well. He was like comparing it to the haka. This is like the equivalent of, and that's great when everything's going well, but it's a bit of a burden when things aren't going well. A little bit.
No, I do. I get what you're saying. I just think the players out and that it seems very intense. They say half an hour before the kick-off, the lads are warming up, and I don't know, sometimes you might
very emotional.
Lose that. But I think the players themselves, that emotional tension that's with them from such 45 minutes before the game, you can actually get that little bit of drainage. Liverpool do start on fire, don't they, in most games they play at. How can they maintain that with the atmosphere of the game half an hour before? It's great. I mean, it's brilliant even when you go to Anfield, when you watch the games and you're experiencing that. But I just think from the players' perspective, it's got to have that little bit of emotional effect on the Madfield,
But then if they do manage to win with all that extra emotion, you can just see how that's going to be a dam burst.
It's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
The celebrations just will not end all summer.
I know.
No football tournament as well this summer. It's a great year to win a Premier League title, so Liverpool will just not sleep. Like, we were talking about it last week, kind of the suggestion, I think it was Daniel Harris in the show, saying that perhaps this Liverpool team on an individual basis was a little bit overrated. Like, I'm not sure seeing them up close and personal in the flesh, because you kind of get a full realisation of watching them in the flesh rather than on television about the individual qualities of the players.
I think you'd probably appreciate that more at the weekend. I think when you see them, the pace that Liverpool actually play at, it's amazing. It's incredible to watch, isn't it?
They're absolutely amazing. Like, I definitely came away going, geez, I've kind of underrated how good the Premier League is.
Yeah. I think that is a thing, and I don't want to harp on about that a little bit too much, because I think the Premier League does get a little bit of stick. It is being hyped as the best league in the world and all this, and sometimes you think, when you go to a Premier League game and you see the pace that the games are being played at, even I was at that game the weekend, Burnley and Brighton, I went with probably, I wouldn't say no expectation, but I certainly expecting a bit of a dour match. But that game was brilliant to watch. Real good pace in the match and everything.
That game has our best players playing in it.
Yeah.
And the Liverpool game had the best players from Egypt and some of the best English players and some of the best Brazilian players. And you're like, those countries have massive, massive amounts of people playing football, and this is their very best, and they're playing well out here. Like, we were talking before the Super Bowl, you were saying you think it's not your favourite sport, but you think NFL is the best sport, and you can definitely make the case that it's got the best athletes in America playing there, but this has the best athletes from around the world playing football. I mean, I don't know, you just come away from it going, this is an amazing thing. And also the football culture of Liverpool, we didn't hear that many Scouse voices, but you heard people who had been, there was a lot of Irish voices everywhere we went in the city the whole way that were going over and kind of making their pilgrimage. So, I don't know. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I think what they do as well at Anfield now, we see with the new stand, in behind the new stand there's plenty of room. They have bands on before the game. Up in the new stand there's even bands playing during half-time, pre-match, inside the stadium. it's great what they've done there now. They have created something very special there. Yeah.
And also, my memory of the last time when I was there was that all the area around the stadium was completely dilapidated. But like, it seems as if the club have genuinely committed to helping the local area improve. Now, there's still aspects of it that are pretty grim, but like, maybe it's just a lick in I don't know, a lick in a promise. I don't know, but it certainly looks much better than it used to.
Yeah, it is. I think it is. I think they definitely have generated. I think there were problems building that stand with houses and how they're having to develop and buy houses around the stadium. But yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. They've done an amazing job. Yeah.
And then you look out the window and you see Everton over there, and you're like, oh, poor Everton.
I don't know. Well, their new stadium, Everton's new stadium in a few years.
Is that definitely happening? The taxi driver was like, "Oh yeah, they're getting one down the docks."
I think it is. I think they're very confident. You say everyone's overconfident, but I think they're very confident it'll be done. Yeah.
Because that part of Liverpool is beautiful.
Yeah.
Down by the docks where all the museums and stuff are.
Yeah, but we're coming right along the dock. It's
much further out.
You're heading actually back towards where say Goodison and Anfield are. It's quite run down alongside. Yeah, it
well,
does.
You know, that'll give the club a footprint and something to.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be great if they could just share a stadium, wouldn't it? It would have been the best thing ever. Like, it would have been great for the city. Right, let's tell you what's coming up on the show today. Obviously, we're going to talk about the sports pages right now. Liverpool and City, talk about them in more detail around about 8:10 this morning. We'll review Dublin versus Kerry, and I don't know if you've seen the picture over my shoulder there. Tommy thinks it's like a Caravaggio, a Renaissance painting, won by the Masters. And at some point we might drag him in to describe bit by bit by bit.
What about the image there of James McCarthy?
James McCarthy. I'm definitely sticking a tenner on James McCarthy, Footballer of the Year. It's like, bad timing on our part. Well, we'll get back to it. And then Alan Quinlan's going to join us around about 20 to 9. We'll talk about the Champions League at about 9:15. So let's start with the newspapers this morning. And City's joy of 6, Sergio Aguero with a hat-trick yesterday. And is the time up for Sarri-ball? Who knows? I mean, if it's not now, then he's going to definitely see it out to the end of the season, because Roman Abramovich is a man of noted patience, right? He's a patient man. He always lets his managers work their way out through their problems, right? That's happened before. Tony Ward, the sting. This one's gonna sting, I think, the Irish Rugby fraternity. Shades of Charlton's Ireland in Schmidt's tactics, but winning all that matters. Those of us who are old enough will remember that Jack Charlton was roundly chastised by the pundits for wasting the greatest generation of Irish footballers by making them play the long ball. That's what Eamon Dunphy's theory was, and basically Tony Ward is saying we're playing route one.
I have great memories from that era anyway myself, so yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they did reach a World Cup quarter-final. You know, obviously we don't want to reach a World Cup quarter-final in rugby. Maurizio's mess, my job is always at risk. I mean, he's screwed, right? He is screwed.
It's looking more and more likely, isn't it? That's the thing, you're hearing these little whispers coming out constantly, aren't they? I was listening to Brian Kerr. I actually listened to the full commentary with Nathan yesterday. It was actually top class. The two of them and Nathan, and from what Brian's saying, he actually does need time. He needs 2 or 3 transfer windows.
Yeah.
But we know full well that Chelsea, if they're in a position, they've done it with Scolari, who was a World Cup winner. They've done it with other managers who have been in probably more high profile than Sarri.
Yeah.
It's the way they do it.
Why doesn't Roman Abramovich look at what's worked so well at Manchester City, which is get a manager in and give them time, but also under a management structure that works for them?
No, I agree with that. But I was listening to at the weekend. I actually heard Nathan say it. Nathan said at the weekend, you know, it doesn't seem to be working from how they've been doing it. Chelsea are the most successful club in the Premier League over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So it has worked for them, how they're doing it. Outside looking in, you know, you look at how it went so sour with Mourinho, how it went so sour with Conte and what it's doing now. But
came off the back of pretty big success.
Yeah, that what they must be thinking in the head. Well,
they both won the league.
What we're doing is a success. What we're doing, youth structure is a success. The players we're bringing through, we're able to generate income from the youth structure as well. I wouldn't agree with it, but I think internally, they think it's working.
I mean, the evidence is. It's just, I wonder, have they reached the end of the road with that constant churn of managers? We'll get into more detail about that when we're talking football a little bit later on. Irish hold on title slips despite win. Sorry. Ireland trailing by 6 points on the table and need favours from others. This is because we didn't get a winning bonus point away to Scotland. But we did beat Scotland, so win some, lose some. England obviously top of the table with 2 bonus point victories at this stage. Wales also did not get a bonus point win, but have 2 wins after a weird game from Wales. Questions about Sherlock touch nerve with Gavin. We'll get to that in more detail because we've got some good audio from Eoin in the post-match press conference with Jim Gavin. Ireland being vaccinated for Japan is the headline in Gary Doyle's piece. Schmidt says opportunity to bring new faces into squad can help avoid repeat of disappointments at previous World Cups. So those injuries are actually a good thing for us in the long run. And I think at some point he kind of says, who gives a... It's the Six Nations. It's not quite that. If we'd never won one of these before, we would have been even more gutted. We have done well in the Six Nations over the last 5 years, so if it doesn't come to pass this year, there is a big thing at the end of 2019 for us.
Is that the first time we've actually seen this,
Yes.
admitting that the World Cup exists this year?
Yes. Also, Six Nations lads, calm down. That's it.
Yeah.
Great weekend of sport for me, lads, as a Leitrim and United supporter. 3 in a row for Leitrim, United winning and Chelsea losing, says John McGoldrick. # OTBAM.
Yeah. Leitrim flying at the moment.
Yeah, they are.
Under
Going great,
Terry
aren't they?
Highland. That would be a massive deal for them. Everything's coming up Connacht's way.
Yeah, well, we'll see. See what happens, you know.
It's that's the sort of league campaign you need for a bit of cute tourism if you come up against Leitrim later on in the year, saying, well, they had a good old league campaign. It's good, like I kind of alluded to it a moment ago, but it's the great stories from these counties are just far more numerous at this time of the year, and
Well, I think what it is, you can actually target it, can't you? Because you can actually. You know full well the championship's probably going to be it's beyond so many counties, isn't it? That you can target this, get your fitness levels at such a level that you're going to be able to compete. That's the way it is, isn't it?
The Racing Post, no new equine flu positives as BHA prepares to make call on resumption. So it looks like we're on the verge of a resumption of racing. I think decision day is tomorrow. British Racing took another nervous step forward towards a resumption as more good news emerged from the Animal Health Trust. And then there's pictures from the only racing that was happening in these islands, which is at Punchestown yesterday. And Dooneycoss won. We've been part of Dooneycoss's history.
But that was nervous. There was a lot of nervousness around the equine flu, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Certainly when it broke last week, and you're thinking the worst, aren't you? You're thinking Cheltenham, you're thinking everything. So hopefully, it's certainly fingers crossed on that one.
And I know they've come in for criticism as well, but what do you do? You can't control a virus. It's anyway, hopefully it'll be back. But we weren't on Dooneycoss this weekend. Anyway, I wasn't.
Back page of the Irish Daily Mail is master plan. Schmidt sees an upside to Ireland injury concerns. And we've also got this story here. Anthony Cunningham not happy with the referee yesterday in Tyrone's draw with Roscommon after overturning a free kick right in front of the Tyrone goals that if put over the bar, Roscommon would have won the game. That was turned over because Ultan Harney went running in to Niall Morgan. Niall Morgan went down like a sack of spuds holding his face. Don't think Ultan Harney...
After Niall Morgan had kneed the lad in the head as well, by the way, and he's on the deck.
It seemed that way.
It was the lad that got the foul initially, I don't know, but that's what happened initially,
Yeah, so Morgan played it expertly. It's very easy for us to say Ultan Harney shouldn't have gone running in, but in the...
He saw his mate getting kneed in the head.
Yeah, exactly. So my initial reaction is, what are you doing? But then after a while, you're like, clearly, if you're not getting Russian bloods to the head in tight games, then when are you getting your Russian blood to the head? So
but it's cost them, hasn't it, ultimately?
It has. It's cost them a second point anyway. So that was a draw yesterday.
Should there not be retrospective punishment for... You said he went down like a sack of spuds. He was hit, though, was he?
He was hit.
He's pushed in the chest and he went down holding his face.
We only got one
getting
angle.
worse than these soccer players now, honestly. I've seen it a few times now, honestly.
Well, the thing is, we only got one angle, but there was 2 umpires standing right behind the goals, right behind the incident, and the ref goes over and the umpires are like, oh, yeah. Straight, it's always just confirmation of the referee's suspicion, you think, with the umpires. Back page of the Herald is 6 in the City for a title surge. Pep takes pressure off as champs go top, and Gavin aims at Mayo with door open for Connolly. So Timor Connolly, the door is still open for him to come back to the Dublin footballers. I'm sure there'll be more on that over the next couple of weeks. Back page of the Sun is massacre. Sarri's head on block after day of shame for visitors, and Pep keeps the heat on his Incredibles. And it's Ole yours, Solskjaer, to get United job. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will be named the full-time manager at Manchester United. Sun Sport understands the decision has been made at board level, although the club may not announce it until the end of, and I'm going to turn the page for
2020.
a bit of suspicion.
2022.
The end of the season.
Is it?
So United are publicly...
That won't leak. That definitely won't leak. If that has happened, there will be no leaks between now, the 11th of February and the end of the season. No one will ever break that story in the meantime. I mean, come on.
They're publicly sticking to the mantra that the search for Jose Mourinho's permanent successor remains ongoing. So that's a report this morning from Neil Custis that Solskjaer is going
Paul
to get...
Scholes as well, officially appointed as the Oldham manager as well.
Oh, yeah?
So that one of the smaller headlines in the inside, Paul
Does
Scholes,
that mean he's gone from BT? Or can he do BTs?
No, he'll have to. There was a problem over his interest in Salford City.
Yeah.
So there would be a conflict of interest if Salford were to get promoted to the Football League.
Right.
They've come to an arrangement on it and how they've done it, yeah. So, but he can take the job now, yeah.
Right. And I mean, you can probably still do BT, right? Because those games will be Saturdays mostly.
No, I think he'll finish. I personally think if I was in his position, I'd think you've just got to fully concentrate on your side. Oldham are in a terrible position in the bottom of League Two.
Yeah.
Well, not right at the bottom, but they're in a bad position at the moment. So I think that takes your time up.
Does he? I mean, is this the right way for somebody to go? Is it ridiculous that he's getting a job at that level, or what do you think?
Oldham's a bit of a basket case over the last 5, 6, 7 years, even. In the bottom tier of English football. I think it's the first time in 25 years they're seriously struggling. The amount of the turnover in managers across the board is incredible. More so Oldham. If you look at Oldham over the last 5 or 6 years, even the amount of managers that are getting 5-6 months changeover, 5-6 months changeover. So it's his local club. Supported Oldham as a boy. Paul Scholes. It's the romantic in me would say, yeah, great, but this is a huge one for taking the Oldham job, yeah.
Okay, so on the Racing Post cover, I'm not sure when that went to post, because I've just been reading about this from late last night. The BHA has received 4 positive tests of equine influenza from Simon Crisford's stables in Newmarket this evening. That was at 11:18 p.m. last night. So there is the most up-to-date stuff, which means that you would assume that there will be no resumption announced.
Supposed to go back on Wednesday, racing. But
yeah, that's what they said initially, yeah.
You probably need a full week of a clean bill of health, do you, before you can actually get back underway?
I don't know, because they can say certain yards aren't allowed to go ahead, so that obviously will rule out Simon Crisford's stables.
So many of the yards are so close to each other, close proximity, and that's the problem, isn't it? I'd feel that they've been in contact. It's a flu virus. It travels.
Exactly.
Travels in the air, so
it's airborne, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe the right thing to do is to keep it off for a week, 10 days. If it's going to put Cheltenham at risk, then at the same time the bookmakers are all losing so much money and turnover, and I don't know, they're the ones who are keeping the race. The race.
Well, it is
in the
everybody,
UK
isn't it?
going,
That's what you're saying last week. Everybody's losing money.
Yeah.
Trainers, owners, jockeys, everybody. The industry itself, of course. So, yeah.
Just a couple of other back pages this morning. The Mirror goes with Sarri Ball, BAWL. Time running out for Chelsea boss as he confesses, my job is at risk. He's there checking his watch on the back of the Mirror.
It is amazing how that is the biggest story from that game. Not necessarily that City were absolutely unbelievable, like one of the best performances you're ever likely to see. And I think Chelsea played into the hands, but that's just the way it is now, isn't it? You kind of know. You asked the question before, is he gone? It's looking that way, isn't it?
That level of excellence is the type of thing that we would have most associated with them in certain spurts. Like they'll hit that level and they'll maintain it for a while.
Yeah.
It's not like they flare up once.
Well, I was at Newcastle a couple of weeks ago and they lost. I was at Huddersfield. Stephen Doyle and I were at Huddersfield. We were commentating, and they were awful. First 45 minutes, they scored a deflected goal, slow, lethargic. I was then at the Newcastle game the following match when they lost. They beat Huddersfield, but it was...
What's the difference?
Slow, lethargic, no real movement ahead of the ball.
Better opposition. They actually respect their opposition a bit more. They actually think they have to work for this result.
No, do you know what I think? It's a great point on better opposition. Better opposition, Chelsea at the weekend, Chelsea went and pressed them high. Huddersfield and Newcastle literally sat on their 18-yard box, said, come and beat us. Didn't give them too much space to play in. If you go up against City, I think that's probably the thing that you shouldn't do. In certain spells anyway in games, yes, I understand you've got to press and stop those midfield players, but I think what they did, what the better teams do is Chelsea did, went and thought we can go there and win the game. Yeah,
it is dominating the back pages, and there's just one more newspaper to get through. It's the Irish Daily Star. They go with Sarri end. Chelsea boss left fighting for a job after 6-0 defeat. And they've also got this story here at the top. GAA to examine blows of Tralee. Great headline there.
Hey.
GAA disciplinary chief set to examine the video evidence of the post-match flashpoint which marred Kerry's Division 1 win over Dublin at Tralee on Saturday night. Several players from both sides were involved in unseemly scenes in the CCCC.
Several's not really true, is it? It was like 6-on-1, isn't it? Or maybe two.
No, there was a lot. There was a lot involved. Like the initial thing might have been 6-on-1 or 2, but certainly there was
I see two Kerry lads. Oh, no,
that's the one. Look at that
3.
James McCarthy there in the back. That's class.
The punch never lands. We should say.
Yeah,
that's only a snapshot
the
of
facials and everything, isn't it?
Look at the inscrutable Jim Gavin face. Like, yeah, all right, just want to walk around that, and then afterwards asked about it. Like he literally walks past it and then asked it, and I didn't see anything.
Yeah. I think it's going to be hard to actually say who should get banned here. If
And no
anybody
one should get banned. There's nothing in that.
I know. I only saw that. It was basically pushing.
Yeah, it was enhanced handbags, is what I would call it.
And I tell you something,
with a little bit of MMA chokehold in the middle of it.
But you get sick of it. I can tell you, you look back across the course of sport, any of the biggest games and the best games you ever would have watched would have had something like that, flashpoints in the game.
We were here on Friday.
And it makes the sport.
We were here on Friday and we were talking about what we were planning for Monday's show, and he goes, Owen said, look, sure, there'll definitely be a fight to talk about in that game anyway. And it was very predictable, and lo and behold, there was.
Well, the reason why you get a psychologist on to explain why a fight exists, it's because these players, especially the Dublin players, just aren't used to getting the adrenaline rush of a competitive game. And then they've got all this leftover adrenaline at the end of the full-time whistle, and they've got to channel it in some direction. So they look at their opposition man and just start a fight. Beautiful stuff.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody with a brain cares about that at the end of that game, because it wasn't serious.
No, for sure. I'd like just on the brawl thing, one thing that did kind of occur to me is that man of the match, Darragh Moynihan, was of course the guy who fell victim to that horrible punch from a Dingle selector during the winter time. And if he wants to talk about a brawl, that punch clearly has sparked an unbelievable season for him. And when it comes to that sort of stuff, obviously those sort of brawls are absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
This was nowhere near that sort of level.
No, but I wonder, is there now like a fear that they need to respond to that to try and stamp out the other one? But actually that's the wrong thing to do.
Potentially, that could be the way they're looking at it, but we'll know probably later on today, the CCCC meeting this afternoon.
Yeah. All right. So we had Manchester City 6, Chelsea 0 live on Off the Ball yesterday afternoon. Nathan Murphy was joined by Brian Kerr on commentary duty. Here's Brian on that sensational Sergio Aguero performance. Have a look.
And another Sunday, second Sunday in a row, we're simply left purring at the brilliance of Sergio Aguero. It's very hard to rank players because different eras, different types of strikers. But what Aguero's done over the last couple of seasons, considering there were question marks when Pep Guardiola came in as to whether or not Guardiola really fancied him, if he was his type of striker, what has he done to make himself, it seems, be even better at 30 than he's ever been before?
Well, he's made himself into a more effective team player. I mean, Guardiola demands huge effort from the front players in terms of retrieving the ball, in terms of pressurising the opposition, not allowing them to set on the ball. And Aguero has had to adapt a little bit to that. In the previous eras, he before Pep, he didn't have to do that so much. He was allowed play as a centre forward, sometimes playing off a big centre forward, sometimes playing off Edin Dzeko when he was here even. But he was allowed play as a kind of a sniffer, making runs. But the demands on him now. I mean, his part of his role today was to stop Jorginho being the build-up player in midfield, and there was times in the game he was chasing back after Chelsea's midfield players, harassing them into mistakes. So that's how his game has changed, but it hasn't decreased his effectiveness around the penalty area. If anything, he's probably become a bit harder to mark, because when he's chasing back at people, it means when the ball is retrieved, he's obviously in a space. He's not in a natural, normal centre forward's position in between two weak centre halves. He's picking the ball up outside the edge of the box, releasing it early off into the two wide speedy merchants, and then arriving into the box late, usually with deadly effect.
Yeah, so that's the lads waxing lyrical about Sergio Aguero. You were making the point that during commentary, Brian Kerr said that actually he would have made Raheem Sterling man of the match.
Yeah, I heard him say that, and I'd heard that said that. Where's I heard that this morning somewhere? You could make an argument for Raheem Sterling. If someone scores a hat trick, you're looking at Aguero, his movement and everything superb. But Sterling was the one that Brian said, look, just brilliant. Scored a couple of goals himself, created goals on the day. He's in great form. He's the form that he's shown this year. He has kicked on to the next level, hasn't he? Even last season as well.
What's he added to his game? What's different?
His movement off the ball is incredible. I think that's the one thing he's seriously added to his game. I think he developed that to an extent under Rodgers, but I think he's cleverer with his movement off the ball now. I think he's always got that ability in one-on-one positions to beat a player, but there's something when you're watching Sterling, and you constantly would have always said he needs to improve running off the shoulder defenders, basically keeping himself on side at times, not going too early, and he's certainly improved that. I think what he's doing now, he's not necessarily running straight lines, he's actually angling his runs off the right-hand side, predominantly where he's been playing, so he's running inside the left-back, and his movement it's incredible. It is incredible to watch. I just need to maybe have a bit of a look at his stats there in front of me now, because the amount of goals that he scored, he scored 14 and created 12 assists, 14 goals this season. It's been
February as well.
Yeah, exactly. 23 last season. He's well on target for that. He's still only 24 years of age. New contract signed.
Yeah.
He's got his game certainly under Guardiola. Guardiola's taken his game onto the next level. I think he's listened, he's learned, and he's reaping the rewards himself now.
Have they found their best team? The midfield trio was Gundogan, Fernandinho, and De Bruyne.
Well, David Silva out. He's rested David Silva. I think he's trying to keep him and De Bruyne both fresh for the Champions League. The midfield three is certainly Fernandinho, De Bruyne, David Silva, definitely. And then you're making your argument further forward where you've got Sterling and Sané on the wings or Bernardo Silva. I think Bernardo Silva's had an incredible season. So you could put Bernardo Silva in and play Sterling on the left-hand side as he did yesterday with Aguero through the middle. His options with his midfield and forward line, it's incredible.
It's interesting that we're actually having this conversation about, you talk about all those players in the attacking positions, and the person who's undroppable at the moment is Sergio Aguero.
Yeah.
And given his age profile when his position was under threat a couple of years ago from Gabriel Jesus, that's the most impressive thing about Aguero's form really over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
The fact that he's adapted his game to be a staple in the Guardiola side.
It is, and his goal scoring record now, is he up to 160, I think, Premier League goals? I think someone said at the weekend. His goals to game ratio is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. Someone might be able to correct me on that one. I'm not too sure of that. But 11 hat-tricks now, and obviously equalled Alan Shearer. Alan Shearer, 11 hat-tricks in double the amount of games.
Yeah.
And I know they've got better play. He's played in better teams, Aguero, than Shearer played in, and you've got it. Shearer's record is phenomenal, it is. But Aguero, his movement, as Brian touched on there, Brian said he's become more of a team player. I think he's had to adapt his game. Guardiola has got him working harder, and that's why he's getting the goals, and his abilities will always be there.
How hard can it be for a manager like that to actually get your players working hard? Because if you look across the sideline, the opposite is happening.
It looked like he was gone though, didn't he? When Guardiola first come in, he was in and out of the team, still scoring the odd goal. I actually saw last week, I think it was Guardiola saying, or I listened to Guardiola last week, talking about the fact is there was a lot of talk around Aguero when I first came in. I didn't quite like him. I always liked Aguero. I mean, how can you not? But he looks leaner. He looks to me like he's lost a bit of weight, Aguero. I think he's got the build where he's not going to lose that power, certainly for a while yet. He's still got a yard of pace. He's not necessarily lost that, even though he's just hit the 30s. And I think in general, he's a sort of player that can continue to get better playing in that system if he's used sparingly. I don't think he can play every week. I think you might have to say, well, look, Jesus is going to play a lot of games, keep him out the side, but he's certainly got him working harder without the ball. That's clear. When I saw him under Pellegrini over the last couple of seasons, I think his goal scoring rate was still as it is now, but his work rate without the ball certainly didn't help City. And I think that's what hindered City probably in that time as well, why they weren't necessarily beating sides and dominating teams. Without the ball, they weren't as good as they are now.
If you are a Liverpool fan trying to make the case for them to recover from here, not to recover from here, but to somehow stop what City are doing, how do you do it? Like, what's the case?
It seems now. Who said the other week? Somebody said the other week when I was in with them, we were in studio, and said, I don't think City are going to lose. It was Pat Nevin. Pat Nevin said, I don't think City are going to lose a game until the end of the season.
Lauro said it as well.
It was Lauro, you're right, bloody hell, yeah, I'll get there eventually. Lauro said that, yeah, and you're looking at Lauro going, hang on a minute.
Did Lauro said they were going to win, and Pat Nevin said, well, I can make the case of them not losing, but I'm not sure they're going to win every game.
Yeah, I think they were both on the same page.
Yeah, it was the both of them, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm cracking up here. It's too early in the morning for me. I don't normally see there's only one 7 o'clock in my life, honestly. No, I think in general, you're looking at them the weekend, can you see any side stopping them scoring? If the side's going to beat City, you're going to have to score 3 goals against them. That's the way it looks to me. You're going to have to beat them 3-2, like Palace did earlier on this season. You're going to have to do something extremely special to do them. So Liverpool have to win every game. That's the way it is. If you're going to win the league this year now, you can't have any slip-ups to the end of the season the way it's looking.
Yeah, and that's hard to see, isn't it?
It is. I think that the games that they've got, they looked a little bit more favourable a few weeks ago when you were looking at Liverpool's running. You were looking at Man United, you were looking at Tottenham, weren't necessarily in the greatest of form. I know they're at Anfield. Is Liverpool at Anfield? Man United at Anfield. I think it's at Old Trafford, actually. But Tottenham's at Anfield. But Tottenham, the way that they're playing and the momentum that those sides have got, I think it's going to be difficult for Liverpool to maintain that level.
Both of them have to go to Old Trafford, actually. So on Paddy's weekend,
and all Liverpool
City are there, and on the 24th of February, Liverpool are there.
That's Liverpool's game in hand.
It's a very close standard of running, isn't it? Which makes it all the more intriguing.
Yeah.
But like looking at
Man United are going to have a massive say, aren't they? The way that they're playing and how good they're looking, the freedom that they're playing. You know full well that I mean, what do they want? This, I think that Man United fans, it's been said, hasn't it? And it's proved
They want City.
They want City. Yeah, they want City. Yeah.
It's interesting looking at the Liverpool midfield, and I guess I personally disagree with the question marks over Naby Keita, because I think he's a lot higher. He's of a higher quality than people make him out to be.
I agree with that, but there's question marks over him though. He's not performed this season. He's not performed at the level.
Well, like Ger, you were there. Was Saturday not one of his most impressive games for Liverpool just yet? And you look at that midfield trio of himself, Fabinho and Wijnaldum.
Fabinho was really good.
Suddenly clicking.
Fabinho's looked very good.
Fabinho was like killing people.
When he first came into that side, I think it was a Champions League game, he played against Red Star, the first game I saw him, and he looked slow on the ball, he was getting caught on the ball. Then he played a Premier League game, he was too slow, taking too many touches. It's almost something's clicked in him, and he knows full well. That's what good players do.
Premier League fitness, maybe?
Well, a little bit of that.
Kind of that, this is going to be absolutely frantic, and I need to get to a level where I can...
Yeah.
But his close control was brilliant, and also he's got a bit of tug in him that, like, he left his foot in a couple of times. Oh, sorry about that, mate. Pat in the arse.
Yeah.
I've just
like
broken his shin.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
Is it not insane, though, that Liverpool have been leading the charge in the title all season, and there are such question marks around their midfield, that if they manage to get this thing right on track with the midfield, which I think Saturday there's a lot of evidence to suggest they have, then this is exactly the boost they need.
Do you know what, though? If Liverpool's looking at one game, I've seen Bournemouth twice in the last month, and I saw them at Cardiff, and I saw them wherever I saw them. Away from home, you're on a run of 7 on the bounce losing away from home. You come to Anfield. If there's ever a game, because they play so open, Bournemouth actually think we're going to go and beat you. Credit Eddie Howe, it's great to watch, but that was the perfect game for Liverpool and the perfect game for Naby Keita. Naby Keita, I would not judge Naby Keita on that one performance. I think he's probably had 2 or 3 exceptional performances across the season. If I'm looking at Man City, if I'm looking at Fernandinho and other players in that City side, I think they've had a lot more consistency to their game. That's why he's been out the side. He's only started 12 Premier League games. The reason why he's only started 12 Premier League games and always had injury problems is largely down to the fact is he hasn't been good enough. He's been playing James Milner ahead of him. Now, if he maintains that form, then you're looking at a player till the end of the season. Yes, Fabinho's improved immensely. He's probably number one choice now in midfield as the holding midfielder. I think he's moved ahead of Jordan Henderson now. That's the way that I would see that. Gigi Wijnaldum has been probably Liverpool's most consistent midfielder across the course of the season.
Brilliant finish.
So I think in general, what you're saying, collectively, I think what Klopp does with them, it's real high energy. Individually, City are way ahead individually.
Can he play a player into form? It seems like Klopp was almost suggesting that in his comments on Saturday night, that he was like he knew Keita wasn't going well, and he just stuck with him. And I know you're saying it's not all the questions answered because of the opposition.
Fabinho not proven that you can play a player.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. No, of course you can. Of course you can. A player, once you get that consistency and you start to get that little bit more confidence, you start to be a bit more relaxed in your surroundings. Of course, I'm sure there's a bit of that with Naby Keita. Something that you always overlook, things off the field, finding a place, getting partners settled, children settled, all these sort of things come into effect as well. But I'm looking at Naby Keita maybe in a month's time. Has he had 4 consistent, excellent games playing midfield? And that's when I'd probably judge Naby Keita a little bit more, I'd feel, yeah.
Well, so Trent Alexander-Arnold came off the bench and Milner went into midfield when Alden went off because obviously he'd been sick over the last few days. It'll be interesting to see who gets in the team when the big games come.
Yeah, well, you're looking at it overall and they've got the Munich game, haven't they, next week? I think he's got to try and rotate them and keep them fresh ahead of that game. That's the way that I would see it. I think if he goes his first choice against Munich away from home, I think Fabinho, Wijnaldum and Milner, I think they're his first choice 3 if Trent Alexander-Arnold is fit.
Yeah, and that would mean like Keita's taking a step back, but then suddenly you have options. They're through that period now where they had no right back and they had to play Milner at right back. And if Alexander-Arnold looked fine coming on. It was
looked really good actually.
Fine to be on the bench, fine to play. But everybody looked good. So there is a bit where Bournemouth do kind of say, "Oh, you can have the ball. Oh, you're Liverpool. You're actually quite good on the ball." And they realise that, and it's like shot, chance, goal. Firmino wasn't great. Was like a real focal point, but just touch was a little bit off.
Where did he play Firmino? Did Firmino play out wide? Because Salah's played most of the season through the middle as a 9.
It felt to my untrained eye like Salah was actually more
right hand side.
On the right hand side.
Right hand side, yeah.
Cutting in. And that for me,
I only saw the highlights of the game, so I didn't see that one actually. So, what he's done for a lot of the season, he's interchanged it a lot. So Firmino, of course, can play as a 9, but predominantly Salah through the middle. Salah has played straight through the middle as a 9. Yeah, formation here, it's suggesting that Firmino was playing through the middle, Salah out on the right-hand side, where he played a lot last season, getting his goals. Created one, Firmino, of course. I think Firmino has been at the level he was last season. I don't think he has been, at that level he was at last year. I think Mane's been fairly consistent in the last 6 weeks. I think that's going to be a big plus for Liverpool in the second half of the season.
Yeah, Mane's going to score a goal 1 in 3 chances, and the other 2 chances could be even better chances than the goal he scores.
Yeah.
And there was like a free header which he should have scored from. I listened to Brian Kerr a bit yesterday. He was like, Liverpool 3-0 up fairly early on. They've got to push on and try and make back some of that goal difference that Chelsea have over them, thinking, it might be a 0-0 draw tomorrow. Who knows what's going to happen in that? That Man City have over in the ahead of the Chelsea game. So it's I think it's gone from 7 to 10 or whatever the difference is now. Yeah, 10.
Massive, isn't it?
They ain't getting that back over the rest of the season, so they've got to beat them on points.
Well, if anyone can, it'd be Liverpool. You get momentum at Anfield, and they scored 2 or 3 goals. You could quite easily see Liverpool win 5-0, 5-0 at home, couldn't you? That's the way that I would see it. I could see that. I'm not saying they will, because I could quite easily see City win 5-0, 5-0 at home against somebody else. So I'd probably agree with you in that respect. I think that'll be a tough one for them to overcome that goal difference. But if anyone can, it's certainly Liverpool.
Yeah. The long and the short of it is everybody should go to Anfield at least once. It's definitely worth going to.
Yeah. I think I'm not Anfield. Next time I'll see Liverpool, I think it's a Merseyside derby. Nathan and I are there for.
That'll be a good game.
That'll be a good one.
What's the city like for those?
Good, yeah, brilliant.
Biggest cheer of the day was when the Watford-Everton result came through. Afterwards, Watford had beaten Everton 1-0. The crowd said, "Yeah!"
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't realise.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is.
It would be quite the sort of bookend of a terrible run of form for Everton, which started with Jordan Pickford's calamitous mistake.
It is.
And to end that run of form, beating Liverpool wouldn't be a bad way to do it.
It's the only redeeming grace this season. Everton have been absolutely dreadful across the season. I don't see any identity in Everton's side. I don't see how they play. I don't see, I can look at Everton and think they're a long ball side, they're a passing side, I don't see anything with Everton. I really don't, and that's the disappointing thing. So this will redeem them if they were managed to get something in that Merseyside derby. Yeah.
What would you do with Marco Silva?
Oh God, I don't. Everton have had too much change since Moyes has left, and that's the way that I would see it now. They've not really got that consistency across the board, and I don't know. I think it's too early yet. Certainly give them to the end of the season, and let's see how it goes, and let's look at it then. I think because Everton are not going to finish in the top 6 now. They're not going to get relegated. I think it's about trying to find some consistency in this second half of the season, get some results together. Let's find a plan and maybe something to look forward to in the summer. Yes, there'll have to be new signings that's going to go into the place, but I don't know. I think it's too early to suggest he's going to go, but which the suggestion is that he could be.
Are they better or worse than when they had Sam Allardyce as manager?
No better, no worse. I don't think they're playing any better football than that. Maybe slightly better football, but I don't necessarily see I don't see an improvement. I don't know.
You can hit us up on the hashtag OTBAM if you're watching on Twitter. Let's move on to GAA, because here's Jim Gavin chatting to a bunch of people, including our Owen, on Saturday night in Tralee, responding to the story regarding the future of Jason Sherlock and Diarmuid Connolly that appeared in the Irish Mirror.
Why journalists, I suppose, how they report on conjecture, on rumour, that's up to you. That's your profession, not mine. So I can't comment on that.
But he wasn't gone from the management.
Not at least, no, not the slightest.
So you've no problem with the documentary?
I thought it was an excellent documentary. If you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend it. Jason was very brave to do what he did, and we're very proud of him. And if you can watch that documentary without getting emotional, well, then you've got a heart of stone. So it's well worth viewing. And that Diarmuid Connolly story mentioned he's in training with Brian Cullen, which of course could mean he's going back with the hurlers either. So we won't get too carried away that he's back in with the footballers, but you can't confirm that tonight. Well, I can confirm that is certainly not the case. That he's not training with Brian Cullen? Absolutely not. Right.
Jim, I understand Diarmuid played a challenge match for instance against Ballyboden this morning. Now, I know you were asked 2 weeks ago, but I suppose there had been talk whether he was going to be back this club or not.
Questions are just about tonight's game, okay?
Okay.
I was obviously, we're away travelling all day for this game, so if any player wants to volunteer their time for inter-county football, we'll always look at them, and the door has always remained open for any player who's either been with us in the past or who wants to join us, who hasn't been in there, who hasn't been on the squad yet, and I think you saw a couple of players there tonight putting their hand up for a jersey, and we'll continue to look at Sigerson in the coming weeks and club games next weekend to see who we can bring in.
Well, that was the fastest storm in a teacup that ever happened in the GAA world. On Friday, according to the Mirror, Jaya was gone, and then on Saturday night he's on the bus all the way down to Tralee, and there you go. And it's great that he is back, because obviously he's had a role to play and will have a role to play into the future. And we certainly bought that story on Friday and ran with it, and shouldn't have, it turns out.
Yeah, definitely shouldn't have. Yeah, he's definitely there. He's sitting right in front of me for a lot of the game, sitting beside Keane O'Sullivan, who's rocking one of the best moustaches I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
Spoiler alert when he gets back on the pitch. So yeah, he's up in the stands. So I'm sure we'll see him out on the pitch as a runner again in the next couple of weeks.
The Connolly stuff, look, doesn't look like. I'd be surprised if Connolly plays Gaelic football for Dublin this year. At this stage.
Yeah, I think given the preparation, what they've done up to now, that's the thing. If we're judging it on previous seasons, then that will be difficult. How did he look when he was back for Vincent? Do we know that?
Don't know. I didn't hear. I think
played Saturday in a challenge match, wasn't it?
Yeah, he'd been training with the club, was what I'd heard, and so I mean, look, maybe his form is astounding, and he clearly is an amazing athlete. So he probably could get back to intercounty.
I'd love to see him, but I think we all would. You want to see the best players. He is phenomenal, isn't he? Phenomenal talent.
No Cluxton in goals. How did they get on with their kick-out strategy?
Well, I thought when Kerry pressurised the corner backs when Comerford went short, Dublin looked in a bit of trouble quite often. Now the thing is, it wasn't exactly man-to-man that Dublin always had an extra man somewhere in their full back line, so they did have an outlet to go with it. It was when they actually gathered the initial possession that Kerry pushed up on them quite hard, and then they were under a bit of pressure, which is sort of the middle ground. Sometimes you kind of take nuance out of the equation when you talk about Stephen Cluxton's kickouts. You either push up or you sit back. And if you sit back, you're not pressing up on the kick out, and if you push up, you are pressing up on the kick out. There is a middle ground here where you can maybe drop a body or two off and still press up once Dublin have the ball in the hand. Once you know which wing he's gone to, and you can concentrate a couple of bodies onto that side. And they made a couple of turnovers like that. I thought it was very, very effective. And if Stephen Cluxton was in goals for Dublin, a lot of the same kickouts would have happened. The thing is, though, Cluxton just brings an extra element of quality with the mid-range kickouts. So Comerford went long a couple of times successfully, went short a couple of times successfully, but it is that mid-range kickout, isn't it? When Johnny Cooper's going out around the fort, you're kind of peeling back, and then there's kind of like your basketball-style screening moves almost. That's when Cluxton really hits his man right in the chest, right on the sponsor, and that's what sets him apart from the rest. There is also, like, what is he doing in terms of calling those moves as well? Is the movement of the defenders different when Cluxton is in goals? I think more analysis is required of that over the next couple of weeks. You've also got to remember as well that Kieran Kilkenny, his movements and his ability to win possession and actually start attacks from inside Dublin's own half quite often is pivotal as well. He's only come back from New Zealand over the past couple of days, really, over the last week and a half maybe. So he's a humongous addition to the team. That really, it was Brian Fenton and James McCarthy who were keeping the team ticking over on Saturday night. But Kilkenny's ability to be the pace setter is quite different to those two.
Okay, so you're not quite getting carried away, and yet you're getting totally carried away. Well, perfect league scenario for Kerry.
But like, what is getting carried away here?
You believe they could be competitive in Croke Park in August?
But like
against Dublin.
Like the idea that Kerry are back, I'm not like where exactly did they go? Like they
didn't reach an All-Ireland semi-final last year. That's where they went.
That happened because of a massive underperformance against Galway in Croke Park last year. And I really think that suddenly the whole narrative changed around that team because of one massive underperformance on a crap day against a team that are so bloody annoying to play against. And to be fair, Kerry should have been better. If they really were up to Dublin standard, they would have beaten Galway that day. I'm not questioning that, but we still have to accept the fact that it was a massive underperformance from Kerry on that occasion, and that is what has dictated the narrative. Like, go back to 2 seasons ago, they drew with Dublin at home, they beat them in the league final. Like, they haven't played Dublin in a championship match since 2016. I think Kerry and Mayo just have an extra gear to go to when they come up against those blue shirts, and I'm sticking to that. Like
take. Man City,
like what we saw yesterday between Galway and Monaghan proves that half the reason why last year was so bad in the All-Ireland series was because of the opposition to Dublin. Like, no, it's true. It is really true. If Kerry and Mayo were in the last 4 mix, we might have had a much more entertaining and
totally. I think everybody believes that, really.
But no, I'm sure there's people out there who are like, oh, Galway beat Kerry, therefore Galway are a better team than Kerry. Nonsense. Absolute and utter nonsense.
Well, they matched up well against them.
They matched up well against them, but I'm talking about when I'm saying being a better team than Kerry in terms of challenging Dublin, in terms of stopping the 5 in a row.
But I don't think last year's Kerry team were going to. I don't think that they were going to get within 5 to 7 points because they didn't show any signs of it throughout the year, that they were building to something, to a single one-off performance against the Dubs?
Mayo did pretty much the same thing the previous year, showing zero signs. Almost got knocked out by Fermanagh, almost got knocked out by Roscommon, and then kind of came up on the big day. And like that sort of stuff does happen.
It does
in Championship football, the way the structure is.
Yeah. I mean, but you're like. You're banking on an amazing one-off performance as opposed to... So what I'm saying here is that there are the green shoots of a Kerry side building something, doing different things, getting Tommy Walsh back on. They went very direct early on. They scored 1-1 off that. Like, they're mixing stuff up in a way that looks like they're analysing... And not that the previous Kerry teams weren't, but like there's been an infusion of new blood, and it just... Change happens and it brings different things.
For sure. I think they're in a better place to not get caught cold this summer, like they did last year. I definitely think that they're going to be harder to beat. How much the gap is closed between them and Dublin, I think very much remains to be seen. Like, I think you add in any of Dublin's missing players, any of them, like in terms of the big three that they're missing, Cluxton, Kilkenny or O'Sullivan, and Dublin draw or win the game. Like that's the 1 or 2 point swing that they needed. You add in two of them, like Philly McMahon as well. Let's not forget the sort of edge he might have brought to the game as well when required. Then they probably win the game by a couple of points.
Who are Kerry missing?
Well, Kerry are missing David Clifford, who is going to come back and probably have a sublime season. I still, maybe it's my heart ruling my head, but I still have hopes for James Donoghue to come back. There is also like the question
David
of some
Moore
other players.
From the start.
Say that again?
David Moore from the start.
From the start as well. But there is also the question of a couple of players that have yet to really come into the national consciousness. Like Gavin White was sublime for Kerry last year, was an all-star nominee. He's in with Crokes. Crokes' goalkeeper, Shane Murphy, is probably still the number one for Kerry. Kevin McCarthy, who's been out of action for Kerry for a while, played for his club Kilcommon in an intermediate final in Croke Park on Saturday. He scored 3-7. All from play as an inside forward. Kerry have never really tried him as an inside forward. Might be worth an experiment at some point this season. And of course, the other wunderkind from Kerry, David Shaw, with Dr. Crokes, who's out of action at the moment. The problem is being a kid and trying to work your way in after the league is a bit of a tough ask. But he is an unbelievably talented player. And of course, they're getting better as well. But I think they're 80% of where they're at.
I think
Dublin are 60.
it is the difficulty when we're judging the league. And we know full well it is meaningless once we come towards the summertime. We know that. But what do you do as a coach, as a manager? New managers at Mayo and Kerry, and you've got to just get your side right, haven't you? Get them playing to a structure, to a way that you want them to be hit in the summer in that sort of style of football. That's the way that it is, and I think there are real good signs. I think across the board,
I do too,
that we're going to see a better championship this year. That's the way that I would see it. Yeah,
it's mad how quickly there's been an impact in Kerry and Mayo. The only difficulty is that some of these players can look great now when the ground is heavy and the ball is travelling a little bit slower. In May, when the weather starts to get a bit better, in June and July when it gets good, and then in August, are they the same players?
I think they've both got good running games as well, though, haven't they? That's the thing. They're both powerful sides. The way I'd look at it. So I think in general, I think they'll improve. I think they'll get better with the better weather.
You're pretty excited about Mayo, though.
No, I think.
Come on, the 2 years are getting carried away.
Oh, the lads, we had Joe. Joe was taking the piss out of me. No, I'm not. The reason what it is, I think the constant criticism of Mayo over the last few years is there's no talent coming through. Now, clearly we can see whatever James Horan has done with the team up there, that there are several talented youngsters that are going to push the mainstay of that side that's been there for such a long time. There's been no Colin Boyle across the stage. No, Kevin McGotton's had a few minutes coming off the bench. Seamus O'Shea. So there's several players, I think, and Cillian O'Connor, of course, who's been our main point scorer over the last 6-7 years now, whatever it is. So I think those players out, and it needs must that we've had to maybe introduce one or two of the younger players that's come into the side, and they've performed well. But I'm not saying that they're going to be the answer going further forward, but it's certainly giving James Horan great options to the summertime when everything's going to take shape, that there are several really good options now, rather than actually looking for, say, we've got Conor Loftus coming off the bench. Conor Loftus not even been involved yet. So there's been limited options coming off the bench and making a huge impact on the side. I think that's the hope that Mayo, we know.
Did either of you feel this way 12 months ago?
No, I didn't. I didn't actually. And off the back of the All-Ireland in 2017, going into last year, there was a bit of a doom and gloom. I was up at the Monaghan game for the first game of the season. I was at the Galway game in Salthill. And there wasn't that real pace about the side, and understandably so. A bit flat. There was, to lift themselves again, and that, I think, that went across the season. And I know Owen touched on it before, that Mayo were probably flat. The 27 season, across the season, they probably were flat. They were just getting through games, reaching that peak towards the All Ireland final and semis. I think now, in general, I think, yes, they're at a level now which is much greater than it was last season, but I think they're going to improve. I do genuinely think they're going to improve. I think they're going to get fitter across the season. I think they are ahead of most sides as it is now, but I think they're going to improve. I think they're going to get better across the season, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But like last year, like there was a great new dawn for Kerry because they had Sean O'Shea and David Clifford. So, and they won their first 2 games. They went to Castlebar and won. They'd beaten Donegal on the first day. So there was this sort of sense. So could get caught out cold twice. But just on uncovering new players, Dublin have also, let's not forget, uncovered a couple of great new players like Gavin, who started for Dublin on Saturday night. I was really impressed with him, and like it is often those games.
What type of players are you always playing?
Midfield, big player, like backing up the midfield, almost kind of going 3 versus 3 in midfield.
Tommy's purring in my ear about his left foot.
Yeah.
Got to be a good left footer, honestly.
There you go.
You really can't be a good left footer.
Phil McDonough's the one to look out for Mayo this year. Good left footer as well.
Yeah, he's excellent.
All right, so a lot of excitement from everybody, apart from the Dose fans. We'll see how excited the Dose fans are in just a minute because Darren Cleary's out, so we're going to get to him right now. In the meantime, on yesterday's Sunday pay-per-view, Marie Crowe and Jack Anderson reacted to a very powerful interview with Eamon McGee in the wake of the recent loss of a teammate. Have a look.
Before I read this, I'd read pages and pages of analysis and reports on attendances and finance and ticket prices, and when I read this, I just thought, everything that is really fundamentally important about the GAA is actually in this. That other stuff is just incidental, because what the GAA gives people and what the GAA is reflected in this piece. It's about community, values, support networks, friendships, all those kind of things. And this piece with Eamon McGee was just, it captures all of that, because it just kind of documents what has happened in Gweedore, the death of Micheál Roartree, who was on their team, and he was a friend as well as a teammate. And like the headline of it at the very top, he said, I was his biggest influence. You think, did you make enough of an effort with him when you had that influence? And straight away you're just thinking about what that community are going through, the effect that's having on everybody up there, a really small place. But as you read it, then you kind of realise that something tragic has happened, but they have the GAA there to support them, and that means an awful lot. But it's just a beautiful piece, because like the easy thing to do is not talk about these things or not talk about these people, and they just become a number, like however number of people have died on the road. But Eamon McGee here, he makes us realise that Royce, as they call him, he's more than a number. He's a friend, he's a person, he's a brother, he's a teammate.
Yeah, that full chat is available on our YouTube channel. It sounds like a great piece. You can obviously dig that out, the original piece, and then the conversation about it as well from the Sunday Times, youtube.com/off the ball. Now, Darren is here. Darren, how are you?
I'm good, Ger, are you?
Yeah. A chastening experience for the Dubs on Saturday night?
I was just trying to figure out the last time we've lost, 3 out of 4 games?
2015.
Thanks, Alan.
That was quick.
Certainly lost Cork and Kerry in 2015. Back to back, I think, early days. So I'm trying to think, like, if you include, you're obviously including the O'Byrne Cup.
Yeah,
and I think they got beaten in 2015 O'Byrne Cup as well. So, yeah.
Nobody counts.
Oh, they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
It's crisis, Darren, is it?
Yeah. Actually, 2015 was the start of the 400 roads, but it's bookended it nicely.
Yeah, I'm not going to press the panic buttons yet.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, like they're still operating a couple of weeks behind. I think the top teams in Division 1, the extended break did that. Like, it's a good game in that they were so close to Kerry, considering I'd say Kerry are probably not far off where they'd like to be in May and June time, while Dublin are still nearly weeks off.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
I don't think Kerry are operating at a pretty high level for this time of year.
Compared to Dublin, they're at a way.
In recent years at this time of year.
Well, as I say, like, they won their first 2 games, including a win in Castlebar this time last year. So I'm definitely hesitant to get ahead of things.
I think the new coach effects definitely helps.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bounce off that as well.
It is. The players are naturally going to be just raised ever so slightly. As crazy as it sounds at times, and players shouldn't necessarily be, but that'll have a factor as well.
They're a lot bigger. They're like a lot of time is spent in the gym over the course of the winter. Like, you do wonder though if that kind of winter of bulking up will actually have an effect the next year, because sometimes you're just so worn out by the time the championship actually gets going that perhaps this is really the transition year.
Isn't that the benefit of having all the kids though, that like you can throw them in? That was what he said afterwards, what did you learn tonight? We learned we can throw them in.
Well, that's true. Well, to be fair, one of the kids that was running was David Moran off the bench, so it's not a bad sub to have. But like that is the depth that they're creating. That some of the players that were starting on Saturday night will become the impact players off the bench. Tommy Walsh was another one they threw in as well. Very mixed reaction to him actually talking to people afterwards. Some people say he played poorly. I thought he did very well. And I thought he did really well up in Breffni Park as well the previous week. I think there's a future for him.
James McCarthy had to go back and mark him.
Yeah. The subs were very.
3 points off James McCarthy. Is that what
No, James McCarthy kicked 3 points himself.
Had kicked 3 points. Sorry,
yeah, McCarthy was Dublin's best player, I thought, on Saturday night. And like
player of the year, James McCarthy. 2 years too late, but it's going to happen.
And considering he hasn't been around for a couple of weeks, I thought he did really, really well. Jack McCaffrey coming back as well was a.
I hear like this is
ridiculous.
Yeah, at least someone's going to kick the ball, keep the ball kicked out to them.
Like McCarthy is just so good to watch. It's like he's just toying with everybody. It's like it's how I imagine, say, an over-eager coach gets involved with a kids' team, where it's like, I just really want to play, and I get involved with this team that are clearly way below my level. That's what James McCarthy looks like when he's playing football.
Hoddle used to do that, didn't he?
Yeah, he just looks like he's not trying at all, and obviously he is, and he was Dublin's best player on Saturday night. It's a blind player. It's actually a great shout, Footballer of the Year.
I still think Dublin won't operate at the level they need to be at until Cluxton's back.
Oh, without question.
Comerford he still looks jittery in a lot of ways, which, he's a young guy, you can't be too surprised by it, but he doesn't bring the stability that Cluxton standing over the tee does, where the players just know it's coming to them. It's an advantage already in that they know his pinpoint accuracy and they can generally read what he's going to do. They have an idea.
And get Dermot Conley back. Get him back in. He's the best footballer I've ever seen. Get him back in.
Best you've ever seen?
Oh, he's unbelievable. He is unbelievable off both feet. I've never seen a player so elegant off both feet. He is incredible.
To be fair, I suppose you did only start watching football a few years ago.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. That's it.
Better than Kieran McDonald?
He was.
Well, I just think I've never. I would have been coming in and out of a lot of games when I was playing. I didn't see a lot of games while I was playing myself, missing games here and there when I was actually involved in games myself. But having watched, I've watched a lot of football over a number of years. But I just think I've never seen a player control a game like he can.
Yeah, it's probably the best player of this decade.
Jim's little swipe at the media kind of annoyed me. That kind of bothered me when he said about I don't know what way you do your job, but I deal in facts. I thought that was a little bit rich, considering that everyone went to ground for 3 days and no one in the Dublin County Board decided they would course correct this or try and fix it, which leads me to believe, maybe it's a conspiracy theory, that there was something in the idea that Sherlock was gone.
No, I don't think there was.
You don't think so?
I don't think there was at any stage. I think so. We did a bit of work on it a couple of weeks back and found out at that stage that this happens every year, that various coaches come back at different times, because, as they say, it's such an unbelievable commitment that is requested for everybody who's involved in that backroom team. Like, we're talking about endless training sessions, endless one-to-ones with a massive extended panel, and then the fringe players in the panel who are next year's young players coming through. And I don't think there was ever any hint of anything beyond he took a couple of weeks off and that was it, because they're so busy. So that was what we'd heard at the time, and we're, I have to say, pretty shocked on Friday to read the story. And then when you go back and look at the story, there were no on the record comments in it. So I think that's what Jim Gavin was saying. It was like, if there is someone on the record saying, yeah, this is what happened, it's the end of the road, we parted ways, like, then, like, where did the story come from? That whole notion of there being no smoke without fire, I don't think holds any water in this case.
The whole thing is bizarre, though. I tried to talk to Sean Shanley on Friday, and he would usually be pretty good with contact. If you ever had a question for me, he would answer, and they just didn't want to cooperate. They didn't answer their phone. I tried him, I tried the Dublin media manager, no answer, no return calls, no return texts. I didn't even bother with the PRO at that stage, because it was clear that they were going to ground and had nothing to say.
And that's a pity. I think they definitely need to be a bit more proactive when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I think there's probably a lesson for them to learn in that too. Like, they don't need to be making everything be completely closed off, but certainly there aren't enough professional PROs around the country who you can just ring and go, this is your full-time job, you have to tell us what the answer is. Or there's no kind of sharing of information which would perhaps lead to an end to this kind of speculation, which was completely off the mark in this case.
On the pitch, a Johnny Heaney goal was key for Galway. They ran out 1-9 to 11 winners over Monaghan goalkeeper Niall Morgan. The hero for Tyrone as they came back from 7 down to secure their first draw in Division 1 of the Alliance Football League. Roscommon had the breeze of their back in the opening half and went into the break with a 6-point lead, 10-4. It finished Tyrone 110, Roscommon 110, so a goal in the second half, their only score to show. In Division 2, Clare took the 2 precious points on offer. They defeated by 3-13 to 110 in Ennis. Tipperary surprise win over Donegal. Among the standout results of Sunday's Alliance League action, Liam Casey got a goal that proved to be very important. They edged that by 3-9 to 13 points. Meath survived a scare to defeat Armagh 2-13 to 13 points. While the axe is dangling precariously over the head of Mauricio Sarri this morning, Chelsea suffered their heaviest defeat in 28 years. They were beaten 6-0 by Manchester City. The last time they lost that bad, Charlie Haughey was Taoiseach. Terminator 2 had just been released. Owen wasn't born yet, and Bryan Adams was top of the charts. Their worst Premier League defeat in any competition since 7-0 to Brian Clough's Nottingham Forest in 1991. Unsurprisingly, this was the first question asked of the manager.
Yeah, hi Maurizio. After that performance and Chelsea's general form, do you fear for your job? Do you think you might be sacked?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. You have to ask to the club. I don't know. I am worried about my team. I am worried about the performance. But my job is always at risk. So I am not worried about the club. You have to ask to the club.
Maurizio, does a defeat like this and another performance like this make you doubt that your style of football can ever work at Chelsea?
No, because today I didn't see my football. So, no. No, because at the beginning it worked. So now we need only to understand the reason why at the moment it isn't working.
Does he have a point there where he's saying that wasn't my football today? I mean, is it not his job to get his football on field?
Yeah, I think largely down to how City played up against them, though. City, with them without the ball, were just sensational. It's been pretty much like that over the last 8 weeks, 10 weeks, I would say, after that brilliant start that they had to the season. I don't necessarily see this infatuation that he's got with Jorginho playing as that holding midfielder that's going to actually control the game for them. Because I don't see them controlling games well enough as it is. I don't see Chelsea being this side that he's trying to build, or trying to build his Chelsea in his image. It's not working at the moment. It isn't working. And I think going forward, I think that's been the thing for them. They're not necessarily creating abundance of chances actually to kill teams off when sides are actually stopping them play.
He's the wrong guy for the job at the moment.
Yeah. I go back to what I said earlier on, what Brian Kerr was saying. I do think he needs a couple of transfer windows
to get his players.
3 transfer windows, I would say. And then you maybe look at it Christmas time next year to see, Hazard's going to go. That's the way it looks to me. Hazard's gone, and then he might be able to get a chance to reinvest in the side.
Yeah.
4 cases of equine flu have been discovered at a second stable in Newmarket. Racing in the UK was cancelled last week due to an outbreak of the disease at trainer Donald McCain's yard. The British Horse Racing Authority were due to rule today whether or not racing can resume on Wednesday. Instead, they confirmed 4 cases of the highly contagious disease were discovered among the swab samples provided by the trainer Simon Crisford. Several other stables are close by Crisford's Kremlin House, which has increased concern among officials that the airborne disease may spread. The Guardian report that Crisford's horses have not had evident contact with McCain's in the past fortnight, the 2 trainers not having had runners at the same race meeting during this time. England are sitting pretty at the top of the Six Nations table this morning. They followed up their convincing win over Ireland by hammering a sorry France side 44-8. Head coach Eddie Jones happy with the win, but admits they were not near their best.
Well, I think, when you put yourself in the position after 30 minutes where you've got a bonus point against a top team, you've done pretty well. And the second half, I thought our performance was even better. Even though we didn't score as many points, our focus and our discipline to keep France scoreless, I thought was outstanding. But we felt we probably left 15 to 20 points on the field. So there's a lot more in this team, and we understand that, and we're committed to be the very best we can be.
Now, Phil Mickelson is closing in on victory at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, which will extend into today. The start of play delayed by an hour because of rain and was halted for another 2 due to a hailstorm, so it meant the final group were unable to finish their round before darkness fell in California. Mickelson produced a blemish-free round and holds 6 birdies. He's moved to 18 under before play was called off. The American 3 clear of Paul Casey and Scott Stallings. Well, 86% of football fans who regularly attend matches in the UK have witnessed a racist incident at a game. More than 1,000 football fans took part in a survey by Sky News. They found that 93% of black and minority ethnic supporters have seen racism at football matches. 1 in 3 fans, that's 33%, have had abuse directed at them personally. Of those surveyed, only 29% say they have reported a racist incident. London appears to be the worst for this kind of behaviour. According to the survey, 17% of fans in London experiencing racism at every match they attend.
All right, Dan, good stuff. Now, rugby next here on OTBAM. Here's Rory Best reacting to Ireland's win against Scotland. Have a look.
I think that it was a different kind of pressure, but I think we're back now to the pressure that we put on ourselves to perform, and I think we'd ideally like to play better. We'd like to play with a little bit more fluidity than we did today. Get on the front foot a little bit more, and they defensively they came off the line very, very hard at us, and they were very hard at the breakdown. It was hard to get any kind of flow to the game for us. So yeah, look, we'll go back to, I suppose, the pressure that, like I said, we put on ourselves, the coaches put on us, and like we want to be better. I think last week was a strange week because we felt that we'd done all right in some areas, but then and been poor in others and a couple of silly mistakes. But we don't strive for all right, we strive for the best we can be, and last week wasn't it, and I think we probably mentally and emotionally took a bigger step forward this week.
Speak a little about Joey, come on, throw that intercept, but bounce back and run a second half or what?
Yeah, look, I think he's benefiting greatly from being down in Munster. He's doing really well there, and you can just see him grow into the game, and I think some of the things you see him doing, like, when that ball was scrappy around, he went down, picked it up, and he made something out of nothing, and that's what Joey can do. And I thought he bossed the forwards well in a game that was very, very difficult, because it really was about inches. It was about every time you carried about getting an inch, because that's all you really were getting. I thought Joey did super, and that's ultimately what we need. When you lose a world-class player like Johnny so early on, for it not to go, how to say it politely, but for it not to go badly, and Joey to step in there, and like you say, to recover from that. Like Finn Russell is a poacher, we should have set on that slower ball. We should have taken responsibility and set a wee bit tighter to him. He sniffed it out, but that Joey just bounced back, and he is a cool customer.
Alan Quinlan, a very good morning to you.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Welcome home. You were at Murrayfield on Saturday. You could hear Rory Best there talking about, I guess his reaction was sort of mixed to Ireland's performance, and I think that's kind of the general consensus.
Yeah, that was a general feeling after the game. I think it wasn't pretty. There was a lot of mistakes. Both sides were probably cancelling each other out and forcing errors, and we didn't see a lot of free-flowing rugby or high number of phases in the game. So I just think the most important thing, and for any sports person, after you have a loss, I'm sure Kevin will agree, when sometimes it's just about getting the win the following week. You'd love to get a really brilliant performance and a real good feel factor and stuff like that. So they can still take a fair few positives out of the way they responded, because I think there was a lot of question marks after the England performance, and going to Murrayfield was going to be tough. So a lot of people didn't fancy him to get the job done and get a result, and I thought they managed the game pretty well. There's a lot of line breaks in the game and opportunities that they didn't take, and when there are a number of players out injured as well, so you have five changes from the week before. There's a number of fringe players who are good enough to probably be in the mix to start as well, and they're not available. Then Sexton goes off after very early in the game, so fair bit of disruption, and you just sense there was a lot of nerves and that bit of fear last week that it was just about getting the results, and it wasn't a perfect performance by any manner of means, and they'll certainly look back at the game and be frustrated with certain aspects. And but the positives are the changes is more depth. Carberry getting more exposure at 10, Chris Farrell getting a run out, Sean O'Brien coming back, Jack Conan played well, and Quinn Roux, I think, the line-out scenario. So the guys that came in actually played well, and they contributed very, very well and made an impact.
Yeah, well, Joe Schmidt was actually speaking about that, and here he is on how Ireland's replacements fared against the Scots.
Yeah, and I think Johnny's on his way back. I think there's a lot of guys on their way back, and there's also a lot of guys changing. I thought Chris Farrell did really well, and I know that a few things went astray around Chris, but I felt he did incredibly well, because Robbie was kind of in and out on Tuesday. We were hopeful. Almost in on Thursday. We were hopeful with that dead leg, but in the end, Chris had to step in at reasonably short notice, and I thought he did a sterling job. So that gives us huge confidence. It gives players around him huge confidence that he can step in and do a job for us as he did. I thought Quinn Roux stepped in, called the line out, 100% accuracy in the line out. Alton Delan got a super steal toward the end as well. So some of those guys who, we're missing Dev and Hendy and Tyke Byrne, but other guys are stepping up and doing a good job, and that's the confidence we've got to have in the squad, because that's the reality that can happen. It seems Murphy's Law. If you get an injury in one position, your next injury is in that same position, and very quickly you're looking to get guys involved. Quinn was unlucky not to be named in the squad initially, and then he's out there and he's bossing the line out. That's a big transformation to have to make.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. So 27 players used across 2 games, and Joe Schmidt was also saying that it'll help vaccinate his squad against what happened in 2015 when we were a bit thin.
Yeah, that exposure at that level is really important. I think, look, at this stage, we'd be fools not to think the championship is probably gone unless something extraordinary happens with England, which is highly unlikely, I think. I fancy him to go to Wales and get a result there. It's a tough place to go, so you never know. That's a really intriguing battle in 2 weeks. But the points difference, I think they've obviously got maximum points, 5 points against us and against France yesterday. I think they'll get maximum points against Italy, who they play at home, and Scotland at home as well. So that's going to put them on 20. If we were to get 3 bonus point wins, we still only can get to 19. So it's highly unlikely. It's probably 2 games they need to lose at this stage. But I think if Ireland can finish by beating Italy, France, and at least taking it into that last day and get a really good performance in Cardiff, even if they lost, it'd be an acceptable return. I know 3 wins doesn't sound good for a team that were so dominant last year, but they just got to go to Cardiff. That's why the Scottish game was so important. If you lost that, there's an incredible amount of negativity, and it's hard to respond sometimes from that. It'd be kind of lingering over them, and psychologically as well, to beat Scotland who probably were close enough to full strength. I think WP Nell was probably the only one that would start in their team that was missing, where Ireland had a number of injuries, and so with the World Cup in mind as well, it's not easy, and Scotland will look at that performance. Gregor Townsend said it afterwards, that just crucial errors, but I think that came from good pressure from Ireland.
That's what I was just going to ask. So basically, when you look at the way Scotland came up against Ireland on Saturday, Rory Best was saying there that they were quite quick off the line, just like England were. Was it a different manner in which they were quick off the line? They just weren't able to execute as good as England, or were Ireland better prepared to go against that?
I'd say Kevin knows this as well. If you're playing really well and you're on a good run and you've won a championship, and you play a team, any team you play, then they raise their game and their energy is different, isn't it? And they go do anything to stop you, and that's understandable, because if I'm playing against the All Blacks, you're doing the same if they're world champions. So that's what England did last week. Stop Ireland. First of all, assess how you can stop their flow, because if Ireland have proven that they're a very good possession-based team, and they're patient, and they recycle the ball well, and they wait for their moments to strike, and they can really punish you then if you switch off. And England just didn't give Ireland time to settle last week, and that's been well documented. Scotland are going to do the same thing. Slow their ball down, get off the line, get in Johnny Sexton's face, the playmaker, get up on Aki, who's good hands as well and brings other people into the game, and then try and drive them backwards. And so I think we need to figure out a little bit a better way of coping with that, because we did struggle a little bit at times. Now, on other occasions on Saturday, I thought the width was very good and they were patient and maybe going backwards a step or two and then getting momentum going forward. And then they got space on the edges and we didn't execute that. But the try, Stockdale's try was, fantastic. Will it happen again? No, because probably teams are going to be wary of that now. But, Joe Schmidt has come up with those plays over the years and, one of them wins a big game for you nearly every time. So I think we need a little bit more variety in our kicking game and we need to be much more accurate in it because teams have figured out that it has been a big strength, the box kick. And if you win that and turn Ireland back, that maybe frustrates them. England kicked 47 times yesterday, which is far more than Ireland have ever kicked in a game, or any international side has kicked in a game. But you don't tend to notice as much, Owen, because most of their kicks were on the money and they win the ball back and then they play off it quickly. So it's not really seen as a negative. Some of their positional kicking was superb. They isolated the French back three, who were deplorable, to be honest. But when you put good kicks in, the crowd get up and they clap rather than bad kicks. They go, they boo, and that's unfortunately the accuracy at the moment. So I just think a little bit more territory. I'd love to see a bit more variation and, have Carney or Earls or Stockdale been an option to take a little bit of pressure off Sexton, because sometimes when he gets the ball, it's just teams are just herring out and putting pressure on him.
Yeah, like Tony Ward this morning in the Irish Independent saying that there's shades of Charlton's Ireland and Schmidt's tactics, but winning is all that matters. I guess that plays into your idea of variety and a lack.
Yeah, and look, Wardy's right in probably saying that, but there's reasons why it's difficult, and they haven't kind of hit their straps yet. They've traditionally been a bit slow to the blocks for the Six Nations, which is, frustrating, I think. But I think they need a little bit more variety. But when you slow Ireland down, that's probably the problem. What do they do then? And trying to recycle and regenerate.
Just on slowing Ireland down, like it's obviously been a factor of the last 2 weeks. You'd obviously have a much better eye than most people on this. Like at the breakdown, that is our strength, and it seems that we've been getting little change out of that area in the last couple of days. Like, is it being refereed definitely the breakdown that's allowing teams to slow us down?
I genuinely mean this. Sometimes Ireland are a victim of their own success from a discipline point of view. If you assess the breakdowns over the last 2 weeks, a lot of the clean-outs are in from the side, negating the Irish threat of slowing the ball down. We haven't got very few, if any, turnovers in the last 2 weeks. I think there was one picked up on Saturday where Johnny Gray came in, clearly cleaned Ultan Delan out from the side when he came on near the end of the game. But there was. I just think we're probably too clean at times and too disciplined. The penalty count again was 5 penalties or something like that. 4 penalties the week before. Given the pressure they were under, it's phenomenal, and they're not getting the breaks with some of their good discipline because opposition teams are breaking up their maul. They tried to maul again on Saturday, and I thought Scottish players were coming in from all sorts of angles and offside, and the maul has just become a mess in modern day rugby. It's completely negated by people coming in from all sorts of angles and sides and holding on then when they come in around the wrong side and just stopping that scenario. So I think Ireland have got to figure out ways of dealing with that for sure. But
how do you do that?
Be a bit cynical themselves and around the opposition, I think, and be a bit more aggressive maybe and highlight it more with referees. But it's tricky. Look, even against England, on a couple of occasions, Irish players got their hands on the ball and looked like a possible turnover or poach, and just English players come from the side, even guys retreating back, and they just clean you out, and it's not being picked up. We're not squeaky clean now, don't get me wrong, but I just think there's some decisions. Ireland are very, very disciplined. They're the most disciplined international side in world rugby, and that's been consistent for a long, long time. And a lot of stuff, it's tricky to pick them all up. I think the assistant referees need to pick that stuff up, but there's a lot of side entries, and there was a load of clean-outs from the side on Saturday. Now Ireland, Peter O'Mahony came in from the side as well, was probably lucky not to get a yellow card for the one in the first half there, 5 yards out. But it's tricky, and look, this is a little bit of a blip these last couple of weeks, but you've one win from 2 against 2 very good sides. One one of those games was away from home, and it was always going to be a difficult start. So with the unsettling nature of the personnel in the last 2 weeks, I think it's not a bad return.
Yeah,
and there's room for improvement, I think, and they'll know that themselves.
It's the best time of the year for some disruption.
Yeah, and I think going to Italy now is a chance to kind of build a bit of confidence, hopefully. Italy can be very, very sticky and tricky and difficult at home, and they showed that against Wales at the weekend, albeit Wales had made 10 changes. I actually think Ireland should pick as strong a team as possible for that.
Right.
They all have a weekend off next week.
And there's a week off after the Italy game as well.
Yeah, so they have another break there. So then there's no week off. It's Italy. Oh yeah, there is. My apologies. It's Italy, week off, then France and Wales. Now there's a 6-day turnaround after Wales, so that little block is going to be a tough one on them, but they've plenty of time to rest and recover. Maybe one or two players might Henshaw and Ringrose coming back will be a big boost. Tyburn looks like he's going to be available. Andrew Conway maybe. So having those players back available will be important, and I just think they need to maybe take the shackles and unleash a little bit of pressure from themselves and get a bit of a flow going again.
Just to touch quickly on the backs, I thought Chris Farrell was brilliant again on Saturday. Rob Kearney, one of the stand-up performers, I think, in most people's eyes. Is that question done now at full-back, or would you almost give Robbie Henshaw another go at full-back just to finally close the book on that experiment?
Not here, not in the Six Nations, I think, not at the moment. It could happen. Joe could put him in there at full-back. Look, he's the expert. He's the one that we laud when he does well, and if tactically something is not right, and the loss, there was way too many question marks last week, in my opinion. But Kearney just showed how important positioning and being in the right place is. Robbie Henshaw's an incredible athlete, and it's a position that takes a little bit of time. And we saw France really badly exposed in that kind of backfield yesterday against England with Huget and Pen. Huget's a winger, he's playing full-back. Penot is a centre, he's playing in the wing. Ficou's a centre, he's playing in the wing. So they have a back three of two centres and a winger, which is just totally wrong, the shape. And so he may go back to Robbie Henshaw. And I said it last week, a lot of the problems that Robbie Henshaw had last week stem from the issues up front for Ireland. Owen Farrell getting loads of time, being able to pick that bit of space. So it wasn't as bad as maybe it's made out. Having Ringrose, Henshaw and Bundyaki on the field at the same time is still a kind of a nice prospect going forward. So, but Rob Kearney showed that, you know, he's been the best and the most consistent and probably the sharpest fullback we've had for the last 10 years.
Like, one of the theories around Robbie Henshaw at full-back was getting all of Ireland's best available players on the pitch at once. So obviously when you had Ringrose and Aki there and Kearney maybe not fully fit, it kind of made sense at the time to kind of shoehorn Henshaw in there. Are you thinking at all about that possibility with Joey Carberry, given the way he reacted, especially in the second half of the weekend, to somehow get him into the team?
He has that little bit of X factor and that bit of that ability to unlock a defence and give even though he gave an intercept pass, but just bring players in around him, even from the full-back position, the way he swerves and carries and stuff like that. And he was very effective for Leinster last year, so he is another option there.
Is he second choice full-back?
I don't know who's second choice full-back. Andrew Conway can play very well at full-back because he's played there a lot as well. He's more familiar with that role. I don't know, Mike Haley could come into the mix. He's been pretty good for Munster. Will Addison. So there's a few options, but the probably concern on is that there's no starting full-back in any of the four provinces aside from Rob Kearney, who's probably your first choice at Leinster full-back. There's no other full-back starting regularly.
Unless like Nusafora has a word with Damak for Ireland and says, listen, start playing Will Addison at full-back.
Yeah, I don't know. What maybe that'll happen in the latter part of the season, that given the World Cup and stuff, but we'll wait and see. I just thought Kearney's tough, isn't he, to come back, and he probably should have stayed in the outside when he made that line break and passed to Stockdale rather than coming back inside. But it's fine, it's small margins, and you just sense those few errors and mistakes were were going to happen on Saturday, given the pressure they were under to get a result.
We've got a comment in here from Cords Sheehan who asks, are France worse than Italy now? Italy seem to be more organised a team.
I think so. They're shocking, and it's really disturbing to see it, because I tell you, France in the first half against Wales the opening game of the Six Nations, I went, wow, they're back. This is what we all want to see. Even
I watched that game. I watched the game.
They were brilliant in the first half.
I couldn't believe the turnaround in that second half of the match. It was unreal.
It was shocking, and people. I grew up watching France in the 80s, where they won probably in a 10 or 11 year period 7 or 8 championships, and they're just some iconic players and incredibly exciting players. And then you start playing against them, and they have this aura, and you're kind of like so fearful. And then you beat them for the first time, and you think they're human and they're normal. And then, with European Cups and stuff like that, when we regularly started to beat French teams, you kind of expose their vulnerability and weaknesses, and maybe their lack of technique and accuracy around certain areas, because they always had this flamboyant way of playing the game. But rugby has changed so much nowadays. If you're inaccurate at the breakdown, you're not organised in defence, you don't have an incredibly good attitude. When I say good attitude, to not just what happens on the field, but your conditioning, your fitness, your detail. It's kind of like gone to complete science, the game, and they're just not in great shape, the players. They just don't seem to be fit enough. They don't seem to have that. Like, there was 4 or 5 players yesterday for France.
How can that be at that level?
See, the problem they have, Kevin, is the divide between the club system and the national team in France. The clubs are probably owned by they're all owned by private owners. So they don't care about France. They just want who they sign and their players to play well for their team and don't get injured and don't go to France. It's a disruption for them. And there's a disconnect between the conditioning for the top players, so they can't kind of pull their 35, 40 players together like we can in Ireland, have little mini camps and have a lot of cohesion around their diet, their nutrition, their fitness levels. And there's too many foreign players in France. So it's amazing that Camille Lopez, who's a decent player, but he's more of a kick and fly half, and they've had so many problems with finding an out half that can stay in the team for a number of years over the last 10-year period. It's crazy. But still, France could go to the World Cup and get to a final this year.
Yeah.
That's the enigma of French rugby.
Like, we're hardly saying that Italy are better than France on a continuous level now, are we?
No, I don't think so. But it's very concerning, because the team that went out there yesterday, and Jack Prunell has to take ownership of this. You play 4 centres across your back line. You can play... You tend to move wingers into centre if you have issues in the centre, but moving centres out to wing. Now, I know Penno is probably the exception, and he plays 13. He plays 13 for Clermont. He plays in the wing sometimes as well, but he's more of a centre, but he's a really good winger. But the other, Fiku is not a winger, he's a centre. Houge is a winger. I know he's played a little bit of full-back before on occasions, but Vaha Mahina is a monster up front. He's 6'8", 19 stone. And he just has 4 tackles in the game. It's just not good enough. That tells its own story. So it's worrying and it's concerning, because I'd love to see the French team doing really well. And look, they're capable. The funny thing is, they could come to Dublin in a couple of weeks' time and throw caution to the wind and he could make a raft of changes again, and they could be brilliant, because individually they're very talented players, but I just don't think they're conditioned enough, fit enough. They don't play at this high intensity that maybe the Pro 14 or the Premiership is at. There's a lot of kicking. The game is slowed down a lot, and it tells its own story yesterday, because if you're up on the stand, you're looking down at the team and you just see the energy levels and the fitness of England's kick chase, where they're just harassing. If the ball is kicked through, it's like, if I don't sprint here, I'm going to get dropped, because there's a coach watching me, and you just sense that you don't have that kind of pressure from the French coaching team, and it's not in their culture to be in your face and aggressive like that and running your socks off all day long.
Yeah.
And, but they're still capable, like they did in Wales. If you give them a bit of ball, and they're very powerful and they can get on a bit of a flow, but But then I just thought they were abysmal in that second half against Wales in Paris at home, and shocking yesterday.
I guess it's the last thing the Six Nations needed was another terrible team, because last year the discussion was around Italy perhaps getting relegated and Georgia getting put into the Six Nations, and now it seems you've got another team heading towards the basement dwellers of the Six Nations. But there is a chance that they're looking at the World Cup to 2023 as a home World Cup.
Look, to be fair, they're trying to bring in some young players in Intimac and Dupont and Ramos. They're not. It's not as if they're bringing back Bamba. Yesterday, he's only 20 to tight head. But this has gone on now for 3 or 4 years, when there's been so much change, chopping and changing of coaches, of players. There's absolutely no continuity in selection. You're always going to add a few guys, but there's 10 out and there's 10 in. It's every year. It's a pity, because they just can't settle on a steady group. And they should be playing Intimac and Dupont as their 9 and 10. They should try and build a team around them. I think Intimac at top level test rugby at the moment is not big enough and physical enough to be a 12. I think he should be a 10 for France, and Dupont is a special player with that little bit of X factor, and he made a difference when he came on yesterday, as opposed to Parra and Clermont, who are just kicking the ball away all the time. But again, in their defence, they've no options. They just got to kick it away, because there's no French guys just continuously running, making carries, getting over the gain line, wanting to get up, showing a desire to go again. And that's a big difference from them. But it's a pity. But I thought England, on the other hand,
give them a bit of credit.
Massive credit. Look, they were full of vigour and intent yesterday, right from the get-go. Owen Farrell is just, everything he touches now is turning to gold, because he's Packer on the front foot, and they look like they're really enjoying it again. And you contrast that 12 months ago, where they were in turmoil, and you sense that panic around their performances, and they lost control of how to win games and control games. They had a better November, a few new players in, and a number of players back. Billy Vunipola back, and they've found a gem in Mark Wilson and Tom Curry at 20, the number 7 yesterday, phenomenal player as a 20-year-old. So, and Tuilagi back makes a huge difference. So I think it's England's championship now, unfortunately, but you have to give Eddie Jones credit the way he's kind of turned around a bad 2018. I think they're going to have a good 2019.
Yeah, I think so too. That game against Wales, though, in the next round is going to be an absolute cracker. Quinny, thanks a million for popping into us this morning. So we've got another few minutes here left on OTBAM. We're going to be looking ahead briefly to the Champions League midweek fixtures with Kev in just a sec. First, here's Brian Kerr talking about Maurizio Sarri's future at Chelsea.
And it was just the brilliance, the individual brilliance, and the collective understanding and awareness of where each other are, where the positions, the movement of positions to find space. But Chelsea did make it easy for them. I mean, Azpilicueta struggled against Sterling. Aguero got man of the match, probably rightfully so. But Sterling wouldn't have been too far behind him. He was involved in making the goals. His running, direct running, his speed and pace was causing trouble all the time for Chelsea. But for Chelsea's midfield, didn't do their jobs. Jorginho didn't do his job. Kante did all right, got about.
Though they are still in 3 competitions. They've the Carabao Cup final to come, they've Manchester United to come in the FA Cup, and they're still in the Europa League. Does that make it more or less likely that they may actually choose to change manager right now? Do you think a change of manager could give this Chelsea group a bounce for the final 3 months of the season?
Well, the decision makers in the club have backed Sarri in terms of bringing in Higuain, because he obviously didn't fancy Morata, and he doesn't fancy Giroud either. He doesn't see them as I suppose, consistent goal scorers. And Morata's confidence had drained away over this season, and they've moved him on. So they backed him in getting him, and they backed him in taking in Jorginho for huge sum of money from Napoli as well. So it would seem a bit odd, but not unlike Chelsea, though, to get rid of a manager. I would say the players are still playing for him. I don't think he's doing himself any favour by being critical and saying a few. I thought he said a couple of silly things about Hazard, and I think in the position where Hazard is iffy about whether he's going to stay or not, I think he needs to say positive things about him all the time. I don't see any sign of of what became obvious in Marino's latter days and towards the end of Conte's era as well, where the players have got fed up with the manager and had thrown in the towel. I don't think that's the case as yet.
Yeah, Brian Kerr there speaking to Nathan Murphy after the game yesterday. Kev, I wonder, does any part of you feel sorry for Maurizio Sarri?
Well, yeah, when you're not getting great results and things are going against you and you go up against a City side like that, playing like that yesterday, yeah, of course, there is definite part of me that will be feeling sorry for him. But I think in general, that's the policy that they've had at the club over the last 10 years. I was saying it earlier on, they've got a policy of bringing a coach in, they don't change the structure of the club, head coach comes in with maybe 2 or 3 of his immediate staff, the whole structure of the club doesn't change, they're quite happy to do that. I think he still needs a bit more time yet. I do feel as though that Higuain's going to be a success. I do feel like he actually looks as lean as I've seen him in a number of years. He looks fit to me when I've seen him. I saw him playing for was it Real Madrid, even at Juve. He looked heavy. I think he looks fit, so I think he's going to score goals. It's just yesterday they came up against a side where they thought they could actually go and beat them. Yes, the players that they've got, Hazard spoke about it. I was listening to Hazard on Friday. I read a piece that he'd done in the London Times with Henry Winter on Friday saying, no, we go there, we go to Chelsea, so we go to City and we can win the game. No problem at all. We've got players to go and win the game. Clearly, the system that they're playing at the moment they're far too easily to get at. Sides can get at them readily, they can create chances against them because they're far too open. So you're doing that against City, what's going to happen? City, with the creative players that they've got in that side, the pace they've got in that side, they're going to open you up. So in that for yesterday, I do feel sorry for him, and maybe the recent results, I do feel as though he needs a bit more time though, yeah.
Let's talk about the Champions League. Of course, you can watch it all on Virgin Media this week. Manchester United against PSG tomorrow at 8 o'clock is probably the fixture of the entire round, really, for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, there is reports this morning that he is the man for the job, and Manchester United are going to wait till the end of the season to announce that. It's obviously at this moment in time close to impossible to overlook him in terms of being a candidate for the job. If they beat PSG, he's going to be the front runner for it. But how big is this fixture for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in terms of getting that job?
Well, clearly 2 months ago, when the draw was made, you don't fancy United. You don't fancy them in any way, shape, or form. You can't even make a case or an argument for them qualifying and getting through to the next round. Now all of a sudden, you're thinking, yeah, I fancy them. At home, you get a positive result in the first leg. Neymar out of the game. PSG not necessarily flying. They got beat against Lyon last weekend. They had a win at the weekend, 1-0. They're not necessarily scoring an abundance of goals. So I think in general, I think Man United have got a serious chance of winning this game. Now the players, they're at the level now that we expect them to be at. Martial, you expected them to be at this level. Clearly, the relationship had broken down with Mourinho. He wanted to leave the club. Marcus Rashford, another. Pogba. The form that they're showing, they could quite easily now go and win this game. As I said, I still feel as though PSG are rightly favourites with the talent that they've got throughout the side. I think they're probably a little bit stronger defensively as well. But as we've seen with PSG in recent years, when they come to the big Champions League games on the big nights, the level that they've been playing at club is not, in the league, is not the level that they're going to play against in the Champions League, and that gap has been too hard for them to bridge because consistently the players that they've been coming up against have not been at the level that they'll face in this round. I think United could win it, yeah.
It's very interesting looking at both managers going into this game because I think Solskjaer and Tuchel both kind of represent the new wave management, the sort of very high emotional intelligence that we see in a lot of new managers where they care for their players. Like Tuchel, you could see him kind of like taking Neymar, put his arm around Neymar, I think, and had a laugh and joke around with him or after one of the group games, I can't remember. And it's kind of reminiscent of what Solskjaer is doing at the moment. I don't want to say he's mates with the players, but it's certainly vastly different to how Jose Mourinho or even Maurizio Sarri deals with it.
Well, and you look at PSG last season under Unai Emery, there was a massive broken relationship between the playing staff and the manager. He clearly was there. They didn't respect him. Now, whatever Tuchel's done going in there, whatever he's done to get the best out of that side, they're playing a good brand of football, much more high-tempo football than what they played under Unai Emery, the way that I would see it. And the players are clearly enjoying it. Kylian Mbappe, when you've got a talent like that as well, we know he's one of the best, if not the best in the world, particularly at his age anyway, he certainly is. So he's someone that we'll be looking at. Cavani's goal-scoring record has been sensational. But another one, Cavani at Champions League level, you and Ger spoke earlier on to me about, so Ger mentioned it, about Mane. Mane might be a 1 in 3 chance man, scores 1 goal every 3 chances. I think Cavani's the same. He misses a lot of chances, Cavani. Given his goal scoring record, it's sensational, but he does miss chances, and he's missed big chances in big games in the Champions League. So that's maybe something that there's a huge question mark over him. But for all that I'll talk about PSG, and I'll give you all the pros and cons about PSG, this has to be about Man United at home. Man United in the Champions League at home have been dreadful. Whoever they've played against, they've not showed any. Look at how they went out against Sevilla last season, even this season, playing against young boys. The Juve game, they were totally outplayed in the Champions League. So now, against top-class opposition, can they create a great, vibrant atmosphere at Old Trafford? That's what
They probably can.
Well, they simply can, yeah. Of course they can. Given the form that they're in, given the vibe that's around the club now, and you spoke about Solskjaer and what he's done and how he's regenerated this side, I think this is a great chance. United, get a win at home, then you take your chances when you go over to Paris in a few weeks' time, yeah.
Yeah, it's really encouraging signs. Just a quick word on Spurs. Just reading on ESPN this morning, like you kind of know the extent to which Spurs have obviously improved, but the article says on ESPN that the win yesterday took Spurs to 60 points this season. That's actually 11 more than they had at the same time last season, which is a bit more than I thought. It's 7 more than in 2016-17 and 9 more.
It's best ever they've had.
Exactly, but it's also just 9 more than 2015-16 and then 15 more than 2014-15. It's not just a little bit better than previous seasons, it's a good bit better. They haven't signed a player since Lucas Moore last year.
No, it's incredible. It is, and it shows the level that Liverpool and City are at. Of course it does, it shows the level. So there was a lot of panic around this transfer window as well, particularly with Kane getting injured, with Dele Alli getting injured, with Son Heung-min being away. And he's not panicked. He knows he's got to work with a budget there. We know the stadium's overrunning in the costs. So he's had to hold himself. I think there's a great chance. I watched that game yesterday. I watched the game yesterday before I went out, actually, and I thought Leicester caused them a lot of problems. I thought Leicester quite easily could have taken something from that game. You know, Jamie Vardy coming off the bench at 1-0 down to take a penalty, then miss it. His first kick of the ball. Then he scores. They were causing problems again. They were creating chances. So the one thing for Tottenham, I do think vulnerability defensively. But look at Dortmund. Dortmund 3-0 up with 10-15 minutes to go at the weekend. They conceded. They lost 3 goals against Hoffenheim. So they're vulnerable defensively themselves. So this game is definitely a flip of the coin. Personally, I fancy Spurs. If Kane, which the talk is he could be on the bench, there was talk of him coming back at the weekend. There is talk he could be back. Certainly getting back for that second leg, getting back for the second one over there in Dortmund, I think they've got a chance. I said it's flip of the coin. If I'm going to swing with anyone, I think Tottenham have got a better squad than Dortmund. I think Spurs will win it.
Right, okay, well that's Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and also at the same time you've got Ajax against Real Madrid. Tomorrow's games then are Roma against Porto and Manchester United against PSG, all of them live on Virgin Media. Which one are you at? You're at Old Trafford, are you?
Old Trafford, yes, and then I'm in studio on Wednesday, yeah.
Nice one.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
It's great to have it back. Thanks a million for coming into us this morning. Great to see you bright and early. Kevin Kilbane there. Then that is all of us, and we're all done from OTBAM this morning. We're back tomorrow morning from 7:45am, of course. More preview to the big game between Manchester United and PSG tomorrow evening. Plenty of rugby as well coming up, no doubt, throughout the rest of the week, and loads and off the ball tonight from 7 o'clock on your radios. Monday Night Rugby, the football show, and everything else from a pretty significant weekend of sport. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye bye for now.